on this computer. So welcome to our home buyer class, specifically for first-time home buyers. My name is Shaunte Cruse. My business is Northwest Home Collective, and I am an Oregon Realtor brokered by eXp Realty. I service the Portland metro area as well as the greater Salem and surrounding areas. We also have Nate here for my team, and he is in the Sweet Home Albany Corvallis market. So we love to work as a team to extend throughout Oregon, and we also have team members in multiple states. So what we're doing here today for our home buyers is we really wanted to introduce you to our other home professionals on our team, because we love showing up as a team so that we can better support the client. One of our primary goals is to make sure that we're not just helping people into a home purchase, but that we're setting you up for long-term financial success. And that means many things, especially when you're buying your first home. So we like to have the conversations, you know, of course, we start with lending, we start with real estate goals, but then we've got to protect your assets. So we talk about property insurance, we talk about life insurance, and then we also talk about financial advising and retirement, because you may end up having a little left over for from your down payment, or perhaps we go into the financial conversation prior to jumping into the lending, and it's how much out of our 401k, you know, makes sense, or should we do something different? How should we tackle the home purchase? So we definitely want to make sure to surround you with the best possible team so that we can address all of your questions and show you that you really do have so many options. So, you know, every home buyer we know has such a unique set of needs, and we know that purchasing a home is one of the biggest investments that you'll ever make. So we want to create custom strategies for our clients. And for our first-time home buyers, they're just experiencing a mix of emotions. You know, I mean, first-time home buyers are super excited, but they're also very anxious, very nervous. And we want to make sure that we're there every step of the way. Often first-time home buyers come in with incorrect information, and that's not your fault. That's just a matter of, you know, hearsay. It's just a matter of what comes with the mix, right? So we're here to talk about the reality of the current situation, whatever that is at that time. And often first-time home buyers don't know how many options they have. There are actually many different loan products out there. There's not a one-size-fits-all. And so that's why we really have to dig into the details of your situation and why it's so important to know the people on your team, not just call a robot or do something online, because they don't know you. They don't know your goals. That's why we're here to help you through that. And sometimes there's a fear of market conditions, right? The market is making some big changes right now. And so we want to talk about that when that happens. Sometimes there's a fear of competition in the marketplace. You know, I have people ask me like, Shaunte, do we even have a chance? Like, should I really even put in an offer? Or how do I put together a winning offer? Those are all things that we talk about, but I'm always going to be very cautious to not stretch you beyond your limits, because we want to make sure, again, we're setting you up for a strong foundational plan and long-term success. So tonight we will talk through these concerns, the buying process, and we will debunk as many real estate and home buying myths as possible. So our first presenter tonight is going to be Jason Fleming with Neo Home Loans. So Jason is a phenomenal human. He's very detail oriented, very meticulous about those details. I love that. And I love that he really digs into the need to educate his clients and help him understand all those options. Neo Home Loans is also a company that my team has done hundreds of transactions with. I'm closing a large transaction with Neo right now, and they have been fantastic. So I strongly recommend them. So Jason, I'm gonna hand it over to you. He's gonna open up his presentation, and then And then we'll go from there. Oh, please do take notes and know that we'll have about 10 minutes at the end of this for questions. So over to you.
All right, guys. Again, Jason Fleming with Neo Home Loans. I love these classes. I think the education piece of my job is absolutely one of my favorite parts. I've been very fortunate. I've been obsessed with real estate for as long as I can remember, and I've spent about the last 7 years really dedicating the majority of my time to studying real estate, personal finance, and just really trying to stay up to speed on what's changing, what's valuable. Buying my first house changed my life. It is undoubtedly where my kind of fire for all of this came from. Now, my experience kind of runs the gamut from buying my first house with very little money of my own to now moving towards owning a number of rentals in Southeast Portland. And we just bought a new place in December. So I love that I've had the experience of the spectrum, but if I'm honest, I'm still very connected to the first-time home buyer. So I built a presentation today that's very much about, today's situation and what it looks like to buy a house today. So we'll kind of just cruise through this. Let's all be honest. This is terrifying. Buying a house, much less your first house, is terrifying. I really do think anybody who tells you differently has either never done it or isn't being honest with themselves. When we talk about like what it means to buy a house, just in kind of everyday terms, we're essentially asking you to go on a 45-minute date and then propose. Right. That's roughly what it is. You get to go in a house one time, maybe even at an open house where there's a bunch of other people around. And then you have to decide if you want to commit to this home, basically all of your money and for as long as you can foresee. And to boot, there's a group of 12 people waiting outside that will propose if you decide not to. Have a good time. It's not an easy, situation to be in. So I take, my job very seriously. I think the trust that clients put in me to help them borrow $200, $500, $1 million to buy real estate, I take it really seriously. I think that it matters. And I think most people don't put enough effort into that decision. So one of the things I want to talk about is kind of where that fear comes from, tackle some of, the top kind of issues of the day. So the first one is rates. Right? They're going up every day. That's all we're talking about. So one of the things I like to remind people, and this is true of almost every financial situation, is when there's fear, zoom out. So yes, if we look at the chart, this last stretch has been pretty rough. But if we zoom out, look at where we're at compared to history. At this level, we're basically better than all but the last 12 years. And that perspective really matters. It's hard because so many home buyers, our entire experience has been in the last 12 years. And then, you hear your parents like, oh, I got my first loan at 16%. You'll be just fine. And yes, but homes cost a lot more now and things like that. But I think in the greater scheme of things, these are still incredibly low interest rates. I think the other thing to keep in mind is interest rates they play in relation to many other things, right? And right now we're looking at inflation that we haven't seen since the 80s and then some. So we've got inflation that's running, officially over 8%. It's likely closer to 10 or 12. So the value of the dollar is going down. So one wonderful way to hedge against that inflation is a fixed rate mortgage, even at 5.5%. One of the things to understand is as we expect this inflation to kind of continue for a while to help pay back the amount of money we've printed over the last couple of years, when you take on a fixed rate mortgage, you are sending money to the mortgage company every month. You write a check. Well, during times of inflation like this, every check you send them is worth less than the one you sent them the month before. They're loaning you money at today's value, and you're paying it back with future dollars that are very likely to be worth less. That is a great deal for you. So interest rates is one of the things everybody talks about. The other one is, home values. Home values are just running away. The last time we saw this was, the run up to 2008 crisis. And I'm not going to argue with you. Home values are going up steadily. The question is it the same as 2008? If you look here, the shaded areas on this graph are recessions. And so it's really good to look at these recessions because a lot of people are predicting it, right? That's the third thing everybody's talking about right now. We inverted a yield curve. There is an impending recession is what, at least half the banks are saying. Well, so what happens to real estate during a recession? Well, if we look historically, there was a little dip here. It went up during this recession, little dip here, little dip. The one that everyone is more familiar with was very significant, but it was a real estate basically funded recession. And that was a man-made crisis. That was poor loans. People were not qualified for the homes they were getting. So again, yes, home values go up. Again, chance to zoom out and look at over time, home values do go up. So is there a fear about buying at the top? Yes. That's why we really recommend that you're buying something you could stay in 3 to 7 years. That gives you time to take a dip if one happens. Most of us are having a hard time picturing prices coming down anytime soon. Most of us believe that appreciation will level back out into the 5% range where it's been historically, especially for the Portland market. For the better part of 70 years, we've averaged about 5% a year. So is it just like 2008? No, not at all. There have never been more qualified buyers in the market than there are right now. And the qualifiers that are winning, the buyers that are winning have never been more qualified than they are right now. So some things to look at. The big difference for me is inventory. So we watched inventory run wild. So that was part of what caused 2008. Again, there were 3 million homes for sale. Now we have less than 1 million. It's not the same situation. Again, lending guidelines have changed dramatically. This was a line in the sand for the lending industry. No more, no document, no asset loans. It's harder to get a mortgage than it's ever been. And that's a really, really good thing for the health of the market. And then again, safety and time. We're really being careful to maybe talk people out of homes that they think they might only own for 2 years. That might be a little more dangerous. And we're just being really honest with our clients. Like Shaunte mentioned, I'm not in the business of doing loans. I'm in the business of creating successful homeowners. And that's what I care about. That's what my business is based on. And that's what I'm passionate about. So I think we're in a very different situation, but because of this, looking a lot like this, I understand how people get there. The question, so there aren't enough houses. Why? Well, during that brutal time, what we did was stop building houses. The group of people that were hit the hardest by the last recession and the housing crisis were builders. There were builders that owned 60, 80, hundreds of homes, some of which were done, some of which weren't. And it just ruined builders during that time. They got out of the business and most of them didn't get back in. So if you look, this is a chart of housing starts. And so we watched it plummet and then it stayed low for, the better part of 3 years. And we're still today barely at the middle. And we would need to continue. Most projections say we would need to continue this pace for 3 to 5 years to get caught up. Again, that's relative to where your market is. In Portland, most people project that we're even further behind than that. And part of that is that it is a very expensive market to build homes. There are a lot of rules. Portland in particular makes it pretty difficult. Portland's also really incentivizing multifamily housing, which will be great to house more people, but it doesn't incentivize single family home growth, which is what most people are looking for when they're buying their first home. Most people aren't buying a duplex or a triplex the first time. That will help the rental market. The single family market, I believe, is still going to be very competitive in this area for quite some time. All right. So we talked about why it's so scary. why would anyone do this, right? So we got that part. We've talked about why it's scary. Now, why would anyone do it? It's the financial impact. For most people, it's a combination of it makes wonderful financial sense and it provides a level of security that renting just doesn't offer. I ask this question in every meeting: why? We all know why it's scary, why. And what you hear a lot of people talk about are those two things, the financial impact of throwing away rent and the security to know that no one's going to raise my rent and that I can do things with my home. So this chart is really cool. This is a buy versus rent calculator for buying a $425,000 home with 5% down, a very standard purchase for right now. It uses today's interest rates, everything like that. And so there's three big numbers on here. And the first one is the cash flow difference, the $12,000 number. Essentially, if you look at the chart, it's going to cost you a good amount more to own a home year one than it would to rent the same home. $425,000 house in this market, currently renting for around $2,400 a month, a little bit of renter's insurance. The same home, if you were to buy it, you're probably going to be closer to $2,800. The difference is your mortgage payment stays relatively the same. While we know rents go up, I'm just using 5%. Portland's averaging over 9% rent increase right now. So the numbers would go up even quicker. So again, this is the checks you write over 9 years. We use 9 years because that's the average amount of time a person owns a home. So even though the checks up front are going to cost a little bit more, over the next 9 years, you would save $12,647 just in checks that you write. Okay, good deal. Check. That's better than renting. Appreciation. This is where you make your money in real estate, is the fact that home values historically go up roughly 5% a year. That's the number they're still projecting to average over the next 9 years in this area, is about 5%. These numbers, they're wild over the last couple of years, where we've seen double digit and 17%. That's not realistic, and we shouldn't buy homes with that kind of projection. But a $425,000 house with an average appreciation of 5.34 over the next 9 years, you'll make $250,000. The home will go up in value $250,000. So, okay, check. That makes sense. That makes me worth facing all of the fears and the craziness. And then the third box, amortization gain. This is the amount of the loan that you'll actually pay off. On one hand, the number is a little bit sad, right? I'm paying $2,800 a month, and over 9 years, I'm only going to pay off 60 grand. But what you have to put it in relation to is, how much would you pay off if you were renting? And that's none. I always tell clients, you're always paying a mortgage. The question is it yours or your landlord's? So we put all three of these numbers together, and we realize that real estate builds wealth. So the net gain, your net worth change for buying a home, $425,000, 5% down, very average. The net gain to your family is $278,000. And that includes the cost to sell. So, in this scenario, you're 5% down. So $22,000, 10 grand in closing costs. We're talking about coming into the transaction, this particular, with 30 grand. This is the number that you would carry into the next transaction every year. It's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And again, while this number is awesome for 9 years, even 5 years, this is a very healthy down payment for the next thing in your life. So this is the why. Combine that with all of the more emotional reasons about having a place to put down roots, having a place where your payment doesn't change, all those things. So this is the why we do it. All right. So now you're thinking, okay, I'm less scared and I'm on board. What does it actually look like? So this is kind of the game board of buying your first home. So first is consultation. So we meet. I try and learn as much about you as humanly possible. Again, for me, this is very personal. Our team all approaches these transactions the same way. So my particular job, I'm a decision-making apparatus. My goal is to get enough data in about you and your family and your situation and your goals so that when you find the right house, I can make a recommendation on how you buy it. Like Shaunte mentioned, there's a lot of different financing options. There's a lot of different ways to buy real estate. My job is to make sure we do it in the smartest way possible. So we start with the consultation. That normally ends with you applying. Once you've applied, we gather up our documentation. I do a lot of work up front. Going into a transaction with everything squared away is really, really valuable. Getting under contract is the hard part. We shouldn't have any surprises after. And it's that approach that makes our offers often stronger than other people's. We have a reputation locally that helps get offers accepted. So we're going to gather up those documents and then we're going to issue you a pre-approval. Once you're pre-approved, we'll sit down for another 30 minutes and dig into what that looks like. You'll show me some houses that you're getting ready to go see that you're interested in. We'll talk about payment options and down payment options and which different versions you would qualify for and what we might need to change if you wanted to change your outlook. Just really dig into what it means to be pre-approved. Then the fun part, you get to go shopping. And that's the part I wish I got to do with you. But yeah, exactly. Shaunte gets to have all the fun. So you're going to go shopping. You're going to find something. You're going to fall in love with it. And we're going to make an offer. The offer piece is where the team really matters. So Shaunte's going to do a ton of work to figure out how much the offer, what do the comps look like? What's the seller looking for? Those things. I'm going to meet with you the night before with all of that from Shaunte and say, okay, tell me about the home, right? What kind of conditions it in? What might come up in the next 18 to 60 months that we need to leave money on the sidelines for? What's the smartest way to buy this home? How long are you going to live there? Does it work with your school district? Are, family changes, things like that. We're going to try and make sure we write the strongest offer possible that really benefits you and your family. I'm going to send a video on your behalf to the listing agent explaining all of the work we've done up front and why your offer is stronger than everyone else's. Then, because of our amazing offer, they're going to accept your offer. And then, we go back into doing some more work. So on my side, then your entire package goes into underwriting, and that's where they're going to relook at everything we did before. While that's happening, you and Shaunte are going to have inspections. We're going to order the appraisal, which is an independent appraiser goes out to the home to verify that it is worth what you've offered to pay for it. That is to protect the bank. Once we get the appraisal back, you guys have gotten the inspections back. Any negotiations that happen have already happened. We put it back in for final underwriting. They look at everything one more time. Looks good. We get it back. They will send a large 77-page packet of documents to the escrow and title company. You will be scheduled for an appointment. You will go down there in person. This will be, on my side, one of the only in-person things you do. Up to this point, a lot of this can be virtual. A lot of the disclosures that you sign along the way can be done through DocuSign. But when you are signing for your actual mortgage, you will do it in person, either at your home or at a title office. We were joking about this before the call. It's fairly anticlimactic because you do go and sign your name 70 times and it's a really big deal and you agree to take on all this debt and they don't actually hand you anything except a copy of everything you signed. But you sign in person and then days later, you become a homeowner. And that's when, again, Shaunte gets to have a little bit more fun and show up and hand you keys and really celebrate it. And so that's kind of what this magical, plan to wealth, what it looks like. And we are your liaisons all through the way, always being available. If you guys have questions throughout the process, there is someone that will be here, whether it's questions about your actual loan. It's in this stage where we normally introduce Joe. We want to get a really good idea for your situation and what it's going to look like to protect the home that you're looking at. That's really going to help us impact how much you can buy for the payment that you desire, right? It's a very different situation insuring a home that has a lot of land in a rural area versus a condo in the city. And so that's when we'll start to bring in everybody from the team and make sure that the plan we're building makes sense for you all. This is also the point when we would loop in Matthew to say, hey, our plan was to spend 50 grand. There's a real benefit if we up that to 65. Is that still fit your plan for the longer term? So this is where having a team really, really comes in handy. All right. So we're selling you this magical idea. Now the question everybody has is, what's it going to cost? So we'll look at just a couple of really generic purchases. Again, this is the same $425,000 house. You can buy it 3% down, 5% down, 10% down. You can go 15, 20. A lot of first-time home buyers, the goal is to spend as little out of pocket as possible. So these are kind of those scenarios. You've got two major expenses when you buy a house. You got your down payment, and then you got your closing cost. And the down payment's pretty easy to figure. 3% of 425, 12,750, 5%, 21,250, and 10%, 42,500. The other thing, and I think is one of the more confusing pieces of closing cost, is the escrow and prepaids. I won't get too much in the weeds now, but essentially when you buy a home, you need to be prepared to pay taxes and insurance for the future year. And so because of the way that those are collected, especially in Oregon, which is only once a year, that amount can be substantial. So your closing costs are broken into two buckets: closing cost, the actual cost of doing the loan, which for most loans in this price point are probably $4,500. That's divided between the cost. So for me, for Neo, it's about $1,700 to actually do a loan. The remainder of that is title insurance. And that is us paying the title company to insure the transaction. And they're going to ensure that the money that you and that we bring to the table is legitimate and documented funds. And more importantly, they're going to ensure that the home that you're buying, the property that you're buying, the family that's selling it to you are the only people that have rights to that. So that if anything comes up in the future, it's taken care of. You bought insurance to insure that transaction. You really can't do real estate in the United States without that title insurance. So that's one cost. It's fairly fixed. It doesn't change that often from one company to another. So that's about half your closing costs. The other are the prepaids and escrow. So this time of year, they're going to collect 1 year of taxes and an entire year of home insurance. So taxes on a $450,000 house, depending on where you're buying it, could be anywhere between $2,500 and $5,000. Again, if you're outside of the city, that's going to be a little bit lower. If you're in the city, it's going to be a lot closer to that, $4,500 mark. In addition to that, they're going to collect a year up front of your homeowner's insurance. So that's where we kind of come up with this estimate for $5,500. We normally tell people budget between 2 and 3% for closing costs, depending on the type of transaction. So in this case, I think it'd be a little bit closer to 10 grand. So to buy a home for 3% down, you could get in for as little as under $23,000. 5%, $30,000, and 10% right at 50 grand. Lots of different ways to access this money. We'll dig into those when we meet for your consultation, but gifts are a big part of people buying homes. I would bet that close to 30% of first-time home buyers use at least a gift from one person, and normally multiple. So I think if that's an option for people, you should absolutely look into that. Retirement, that's something where we loop in, again, Matthew, your financial advisor, have that conversation. There's a lot of blanket advice that says you should never do that. In the Pacific Northwest, the math disagrees. There is often a case to take a loan from your retirement. You're paying yourself interest over time. Can be a great way. If that's the only way to get your family into a home, and maybe your retirement bucket is where it should be, and you're not able to buy a home, trying to even those things out can often make a lot of sense. So again, lots and lots of options. There's lots of down payment assistance for different situations. There are doctor loans and teacher loans and all kinds of things like that. We can dig into those more in detail. So that's the upfront cost. What does that translate to for a payment? Well, again, If you spend 22.7, you're in the 29.70 range. If you go to the $30,000 number that came with 5%, drops it down to the 28 that we talked about in the previous scenario. And then it goes down a little bit more to the 26.5 number. So your payment varies. Again, these numbers can vary wildly from one part of town to another, totally dependent also on your credit. Mortgage insurance is drastically affected by credit. Things like that can really, really have a huge impact on your payment. So we really want to dig into that situation. A lot of people come in with less than ideal credit. We have an entire company whose job is to put people in a better situation to buy a home based on their credit. And they take over and they're really, really good at what they do. So introduce you to those folks. They feed you back into the program and we revisit it when the timing makes more sense. So if that's a fear, don't hesitate, reach out. I'd be happy to connect you with those folks. So that's kind of a really broad overview of what it looks like to buy a home. Hopefully we've kind of broken through a lot of the fear and that this seems like a good idea. If you've got your cell phone on you, you can scan the QR code. It will take you directly to my Calendly, which will allow you to sign up for a home buying consultation. If we've already met, feel free to shoot me an email, or if you're ready to apply, just go to youshouldtalktojason.com. It'll take you to the link to apply. But if you've got any questions, Shaunte will be sending out all of my contact info. I'm here to answer questions anytime.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jason. All right, so I'm going to hand it over next to Joe Connolly. Joe Connolly with Cascade Summit Insurance, our private insurance agent, is fantastic and has a wide variety of products available to better serve clients, and every property is so unique. So when I have a property that's in a potential flood zone, I'm reaching out to Joe and saying, hey, can you verify this? What does flood insurance look like? What do we need to be concerned about? Every property is so unique. So we really need to lean on Joe for all of those details. And he'll give a brief overview of his services.
Can you see that screen okay, Shaunte? Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for confirming that. Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. I have such a pleasure working with Shaunte, Jason, and Matthew. And every single one of them brings a unique skill set to the team, but every one member of this team wouldn't be full without each other. I mean, we really fill every need when it comes to home buying, and it's an extremely overwhelming process. And if some of you who we've heard are getting married and undergoing a lot of life changes simultaneously, yeah, I mean, this is something. It'd be nice to have someone help you take care of these things, right? It's something that I didn't have going through my own home buying process, and I wish I did. Anyway, so yeah, my name is Joe Conley, and I am a local independent agent. Actually, work right up the street from where Jason lives in Westland, Oregon. I am inheriting a business from my father-in-law, Jay Schrader, and he owns a company called Cascade Summit Insurance. It's gone by many names over the years, but it's been around for roughly 100 years. I've been in insurance ever since I graduated college in 2012, and I've been in various insurance roles ever since. The one that was most influential to me was as an adjuster, where I handled claims in over 22 different states with a focus in Hawaii, Alaska, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, of course, and California. And as an agent, I get to write policies that I wish were the policies of my customers that I was handling claims with. And that means providing necessary endorsements, especially for the weather that we have in the Northwest, and creating strategy plans for new home buyers, especially like yourself. We don't always know how to care or even care really what insurance companies are looking for in a home. But if it does save you several hundreds and even thousands of dollars, you'd probably want to listen to that advice. So let's get to it. The things you want to know when buying a new home the very first question insurance agent should be asking is the age of your roof. Now, age of roof can be varied, but generally 25 years or newer, you're going to find yourself a much better policy. Once you go above 25 years, you're likely to find a home policy that raises that premium and then offsets all the other costs that are involved in that mortgage transaction. And what we're trying to do is reduce that cost for you. So if you can negotiate your way into a new roof, oftentimes that's a better investment, especially if it's older than 25 years. And that's, again, something to talk with Jason about throughout the process so that we can make sure that's the right choice. So how close are you to a water source, a lake, a creek, a river, ocean, a wetland? Water is the #1 loss in a home, and it's my job to make sure you're safe. It happens that I've specialized in flood insurance and other forms of catastrophic insurance. Really good at locating where you'd have a likelihood of a water damage, especially by nearby sources. And the policy is to make sure that we can accommodate that at the lowest possible cost. Flood insurance gets expensive, so it's good to have someone who has resources available to make sure we keep those costs low. And then, of course, what is the fire danger of the where the home is located? Everyone was here in 2020 and saw the skies orange and red. It was horrible. There are areas where we can buy homes before that now are extremely expensive due to the fire risk. A lot of home insurance companies will not write in those areas, making it very difficult to meet those goals financially in the premium. So it's extremely important that we check that ahead of time before you fall in love with the home, before you start getting really competitive in your offers, because there might be something on the back end there that you just don't know yet. In Oregon and Washington, there's really one significant difference in how we rate for insurance. In Oregon, your credit score plays a large role, your insurance history, losses of the house you are buying. That means even if you didn't report the loss because you didn't live there, but if it happened to have a water loss at that home, or perhaps a denied claim due to wear and tear, your home insurance will cost more, even at no fault to you. You just have to be moving there. It's something that I will be able to pull in a report, and I can share that with you ahead of time, and you can prepare for those areas because it'll actually tell you exactly what happened. Oftentimes not utilized, and I want to provide that resource. Washington, the difference is they cannot pull credit as of June of last year. So credit is no longer used in a determining factor as to your rate. All right, so the goal here is to protect your assets. Not all insurance is created equal. As an independent, I work across a network of different providers, over 6 preferred providers, and I'm going to provide you the best possible quote out of those 6. We will go over the coverages in depth and the different endorsements that will be provided to you to give you an advantage. Always shopping on your behalf. Every time we have a renewal, if the rate goes up, I want to make sure that you're getting the right rate, which means we might be shopping even within my own company to get you the better rate, as well as keeping the best possible coverages. And then helping you determine a claim direction if you actually have a claim that happens to this beautiful home of yours. I want to follow that with you and work with your claim adjuster to make sure it's done correctly. I was a claim adjuster. I speak their language. I can look at policy and help guide them to coverage for you. I just need to be included in those conversations, and it goes really quickly. It's amazing how much more quickly sometimes. Thank you so much for listening to my portion of the presentation. Below you'll see my contact information. Of course, Shaunte will be sending this out to everyone after this. Below you'll see a link that you are more than welcome to capture on your phone if you like. And then this is just an appointment that you can schedule with me, and it's already linked to my Outlook calendar, so it's completely based off of your availability. Thank you so much. Shaunte, back to you.
If I wasn't muted. No, thank you so much, Joe. Insurance is super important, and the truth is you don't know what you don't know, right? So one thing I also love talking about with insurance brokers is, not that it's super fun, but I like to seek understand and know what the exclusions of a policy might be as well, because you just don't know until something happens, and water is such a big issue. In my very first home, we had a major mold issue, a major leak that they thought was plumbing, then they thought was the roof, and turned out it was poor siding insulation. So and it had turned to black mold that tested toxic. We had to move out, big thing. And mold was not really covered in Oregon. So you really have to have those conversations with your agents and better understand. And we got really lucky and had really great coverage. But another great reason why you need a really fantastic team, and you need to understand what your policy includes and what it excludes. So thanks again, Joe. And next up, we have Matthew Van Dyke with Edward Jones Financial. He's going to talk to us about the planning, the pre-planning, as well as, how to save for those long-term retirement needs.
Thank you, Shaunte, and thank you for having me. Again, my name is Matthew Van Dyke with Edward Jones, and real estate is a great investment. It's a piece of the puzzle for your retirement, for your life. And with any investment, we would sit down and kind of look at, okay, what's the best route to go? I am an expert in investing in the market. In real estate, I have experience, but ask me about the mortgage payment, I don't know. That's where I have to rely on Jason. How much do we need? I don't know. How much is it going to cost, right? What is the best area to look in? Shaunte, what is the best area? That's where she comes in. And then how do we protect all of that, Joe, right? So I focus on the part that I know, and then rely on my team members here to help me on the other aspect as we're going through your planning on how to what the best route to go is. So with any investment, when it comes to real estate, and Jason touched base on this one, short term, don't really recommend it. If you're only looking to be there for 1-2 years, that's really risky because you don't know what's going to happen with the market. So we really want to start planning long term. And he also mentioned that no matter what, though, you are going to be paying a mortgage. It's either going to be yours or somebody else's. So that's where homeownership really is awesome. But how are you going to get that down payment? And that's where I can kind of come in and help. We would actually set up a plan. How much can you set aside to start investing? How far out are you looking? Are you looking at buying a house in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Based on that, we would come up with a different strategy on how to save. And then again, how much are you going to need? So where are those funds going to come from? We look at all those different aspects. And then the other aspect that we look at is, are you going to, is this this is your first home? So is it going to be your last home? There are some people who want that forever home. They want to build their roots there. They want to have all the memories. They don't want to pack up and move. Others are like, no, this is just a stepping stone. This is my first house. So are you going to sell that when you're moving and using those investments for your next home? Or are you going to keep it and use it to create income for your retirement plan? So that's a discussion we would sit down and discuss as that time comes. So where I kind of play that role is, I'm not just okay, here's your 401k and good luck, and we'll talk to you in 40 years when you retire. I am working with you on a yearly basis, several times during that year too, having conversations with your goals, making sure that you are on track for your different goals, whether it be retirement, whether it be buying for your first home. You have one person to call that gets to know you, that understands what your dreams are, what your priorities are. And so that way, when we're discussing, do we pull a loan out of your 401k to make that deposit? Does that make sense? We run those numbers. We don't guess. So we want to make sure we're making the right decision for you, not just for today, but for 40 years from now. So we also look at the numbers, and this is where Jason and I partner together. Okay, is it better to do a 15-year loan or a 30-year loan? We don't know. You know, if you talk to Dave Ramsey, he's going to give you a very cookie cutter answer. 15-year loan, 20% down. That's the only thing to do, right? Everybody's scenario is different. You know, he has some great strategies, but he's a radio personality. He needs to talk to the masses. We get down into the weeds. We look at you on an individual basis and really figure out what's the best thing to do. And again, Jason touched base on it. Is your retirement on track? Okay. So is it out of whack? We want to make sure all those different aspects in your life are on track. You know, you're getting, I think, Nicole, you said you were getting married this year, you know, that's just one of those stepping stones that we look at. Are you going to have kids? You know, are you going to have 1, 2? I have a friend who has 6, you know, all those things change the view of your goals. So we sit down and we work on those. So it does not cost anything to have a conversation with me, to sit down, figure out, you know, what are we trying to figure out with your goals, whether it is saving for your home, retirement, both, protection, all that. So that's about all I have for tonight. So Matthew Van Dyke with Edward Jones. Thanks, Shaunte.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. Really appreciate it. Yeah, so we just have a few of you on, but we would love to open this up, and please, if you have any specific questions, we'd love to do our best to answer them tonight. Nicole? Nathan, Brittany? You loved it. You're ready to buy a home.
Lots of information digesting. It was a very wonderful presentation, and I think, you know, we learned a lot. I have a whole 2 pages worth of notes. And I think, you know, we're really interested to start speaking with some more people about you know, what's the best financial decision for us and how to frame that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you took those notes. I will definitely follow up and make sure that you have a link to this recording so that you can circle back on anything that you missed or whatnot, and make sure you know how to reach us in case you have any other specific questions.
I did put my contact information in the chat bar, so.
And Brittany, Nathan, thank you for coming. Any questions, the 2 of you? Nate, from a real estate perspective, Brittany, from an insurance perspective?
Fantastic class, great information. Really appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone getting together like this and just wanting to help people. It's just amazing. And I know these 4 individuals that presented today, personally, we meet in a group every week, and I just can't even say enough about them. I'm very impressed with this presentation.
Awesome.
And you're all helping people. That's amazing. And that's the only reason you're doing this.
Well, we hope so. I mean, honestly, I was going to say, so my husband and I bought our first home when we were 24 and super addicted, like Jason talked about being, you know, the market was doing fantastic. And so we refinanced after the first year, pulled out some money, and actually our payment was like became lower because the interest rates went down. And we were able to buy our first rental home with that. And that put us off to a great start. But had I known more about the financial advising side, as well as life insurance when I was 24 and just getting started, would have made the world of difference. I'm sure I would have even more rental properties now. And so like working with a team and knowing those details from the front end would really are just hugely beneficial. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead, Brittany.
Oh, I just said absolutely. Sorry.
I was going to say, my first experience with buying a house was in 2006. So halfway through 2006, so at the top of the market, and then I got to experience 08, 09. So my first experience buying a home was not the best experience. But then the second house I bought, I bought in 2011 at the bottom of the market, you know, and second home, knew better what to look for, things like that. So
yeah, I love the stories. I mean, like, we are that example that Jason was describing. We were not necessarily qualified for the loans in which we got. We are some of the many few that survived them, but we didn't necessarily deserve them at the time.
yeah.
And that is just what they were handing out. They were handing them out like candy. And yes, we lost a lot of equity in 08, but you know, over thinking about real estate long term, over 10 to 15 years, we tripled our return with both of our homes. So the advantage is huge.
Came back, it always does.
Yeah,
it always has.
Just got to stick with it and really be in the mindset. Real estate really is, in my opinion, the best vehicle for a long-term investment. But I do strongly believe in having a diversified investment portfolio.
Yep.
So, no, thank you everybody for coming. I will follow up, and we would love to be your first time homebuyer team. And if you have, if you know of anyone looking to get into the market, whether it's now, a year from now, 3 years from now, we're happy to open up those conversations to help better prepare them as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yep.